What is up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to this very special episode of the DADS. Not always on wrestling. Of course, we are wrestling today. That's why I'm starting the show. But I am, of course, the West Coast Professor Jeff Meacham. To my left on screen is the Renegade of Wrestling, JJ Williams. And man, JJ, this is one of those where you asked me last week on Talk Wrestling what shows I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. And you brought up specifically the Eagles shows and the Disney shows, but I was very quick to say the shows this week are honestly what I'm looking forward to for a couple of reasons. One, I always give the answer that, the Kings gave at their Stanley Cup thing. What's your favorite Stanley Cup win? The next one. I always look forward to what's coming on the horizon because there's you and I have been able to generate such good topics in our collective crazy brains that this week alone, we've got two because of what's going on this coming weekend out in Nashville. We were able to move our show from November up to this coming Thursday, which we'll talk about at the end here. But, man, you talk about somebody that arguably it was even funnier for you because at the time you came into fandom, he wasn't even an active star. Yeah. And for a guy that I feel became the greatest in-ring performer of our generation, to talk about his greatest matches, number one, is an honor. Number two, it was a muckerfuther of a task to narrow it down.
Yeah, it's like, what do you go off of?
Yeah.
What is your criteria? It was really hard for me, like you said, because by the time I came into it in the summer of '98, the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels, the man we're here to talk about today, wasn't even the commissioner yet.
No.
He wasn't even Commissioner Michaels yet. So, with the exception of, I think, like 3 matches on my list, everything is from the second run. The run that was my Shawn Michaels run.
Right.
After he came back, after he had been commissioner, after he was in the failed WWE version of the NWO.
Yes.
After he had gotten right with God and everything. And even had God walk out on him during a match.
That won't be on the list, by the way, for the record, y'all. Just saying that.
I actually contemplated it just because it was that freaking funny, but I digress.
Buy the shirt.
So most of my matches are from that second run.
Yes.
But that doesn't take anything away from his first run by any stretch of the imagination.
No.
Because arguably, those were his most iconic matches. Yes. The second run were some of his best matches, in my humble opinion.
I would agree with that, and I will say that damn near my list divides in half between his first and second run. So there you go.
And to help us discuss this topic,
yes,
we have a special guest joining us today.
Yes.
I think this is the first time we have had a special guest on DADS since the Valentine's Day episode last year.
Yes, this is true. And let's be honest, we love this guy almost just as much.
Yeah. So,
we really do.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for my brother from another mother, the icon, the showstopper, the stat boy, the LB Kid, Mike Caldwell.
Yeah, buddy. Oh, with the pose.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious.
I hit the RVD pose when you introduced me, but I should have done the HBK, but I'd have to stand up to really get the effect of that, and no one wants me standing up right now.
Yeah, no.
That puts my gut right in the camera view. It's not a pretty sight, But before we get to you, Mikey, exactly. Before we get to you, Mikey, and we welcome you in properly, the main reason I didn't want you to mention the Eagles or the Disney ones is because, number one, I know your love of the Eagles.
Accurate.
And number two, I know how we are when it comes to Disney.
Yes.
So I was curious if there was anything else that we had been talking about that just had you itching. So it's ironic to me, and whether it was the cop-out answer or not, but the fact that this show and the one we're going to promote at the end of the show were the ones you were looking forward to the most, I thought was kind of interesting. But as far as Stat Boy goes, as far as the LB Kid is concerned, dare I say, out of anybody in our circle, if there is a expert, if you will,
Wheel.
to wax proxy on Michael Shawn Hickenbottom,
Yes.
it is Mike Caldwell down here.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
from day one, HBK has been his favorite.
Absolutely. That he
Mikey,
has.
before we get into our lists here, what is it about Shawn Michaels that just makes him appeal to you so much? What was it about his early performances, whether it was the Rockers or his singles career post the barbershop incident? What was it about him that just captivated you and made you go, that's my guy?
It was his overall coolness. I used to use the word coolness a lot. He was just cool with everybody. He could come in, have a great fight, and just be cool about it. And next thing you know, your teeth are getting stomped down your throat by a super kick right to your chin. You know, the beginning years when he was the arrogant years, I hated him. Who didn't? And then the dirty HBK years with the DX stuff, it was funny but a little too adult. Then there was the redemption story. Then there was the clean DX, which made it a lot more funny. Let's face it, Triple H was the jokester, and Shawn was the straight guy. But Shawn would still do something stupid like kick a 9-year-old holding a salad bowl while burning up a grill, cooking hot dogs.
And let's not
Man to boy,
forget about him.
man to boy.
Let's not forget about him kicking Stan either.
That's right.
Oh yeah, I still watch that and laugh.
I kick Stan.
Same. I would say from during the DX era.
Triple H can't do the computer, but Shawn's doing this.
Yeah.
I don't think either one of them can turn on the computer, but hey. But yeah, he's cool, he's funny, he's amazing.
I think from that second DX run, that's probably one of my favorite things that they did. The whole, you're not controversial. No one thinks you're controversial anymore. I'm not controversial. What's your name? Stan. Crap, I just kicked Stan.
And knowing that Shawn Spears is the best part of that whole thing.
Like,
oh my God.
Poor
that was some of the best stuff. But in any event,
oh Christ.
Stat Boy, welcome officially to an episode of Dad's Not Always on Wrestling.
Thank you.
It is so cool to have
anytime
you
I can be with my brothers, you know how it is. I always say it. I love being on air with my brothers. Family means everything, and let's do this. Let's get started. Let's talk about good old HBK.
Good old HBK, huh?
All right,
everybody's good old now. It used to be just good old JR. Then Aaron hands it to me on a platter. Now everybody's good old. All right, whatever. All right, whatever.
So the way we usually do it around here is on the wrestling weeks. I usually go first. Jeff brings it home.
Yes, sir.
We're going to continue with that trend today. You'll go in the middle. You will be the Mikey in the middle, so to speak.
God damn it, Mikey in the middle. If you know, you know, folks.
For my list, and like I said in the beginning, the majority of my stuff is from the second run. Don't hate me, folks. I'm not saying that there wasn't great stuff in the first run.
Right.
And as a matter of fact, I even told Jeff, I don't remember if I told you this privately or if it was on the air when we did DADS last week.
Right.
I don't have either ladder match.
Right. We did it on air. Right.
I know that is probably blasphemy. However, I 99.99999% positive Mikey was going to have it. And I feel like the ladder matches between Shawn and Razor are really kind of overplayed when it comes to lists.
Yeah.
So I kind of felt like that was going to be a cop-out to use. Okay. So just for the record, there is no ladder match with Razor on my list.
Potential spoiler alert.
Okay.
So we're gonna kick mine off with probably the oldest match on my list.
Oh, there we go.
Shawn Michaels versus Marty Jannetty for the Intercontinental title.
Which one on Raw?
It doesn't give the date, so you can kind of like pick one.
Okay. Okay.
I just really enjoyed the feud that spiraled out of the initial Rockers breakup
Yes.
and Marty jumping through the barbershop window unprovoked. You know, it's kind of like how we always. It's kind of like how we always talk about Randy Orton walking down to the ring at SummerSlam 04, finding the world title in the ring, picking it up, climbing to the top of the turnbuckle, and posing. You know, there was nobody else involved in that match.
In those awful peach ass tights.
That's right. In those god awful peach tights.
Thank you.
Nothing else happened during that match.
Not a damn.
Marty Jannetty and Shawn Michaels walked into the barbershop. Marty Jannetty took one look at Shawn Michaels and then threw himself through the window. But
oh my god,
the insinuating feud that came out of that was just so good.
Yes.
And I really enjoyed, you know, whenever you get those partner versus partner matches hot off the breakup, you know those matches are 9 times out of 10 going to be match of the year candidates. They're going to be solid because they have worked together and they know each other's rapport so well that they just don't even have to talk about the match beforehand. They can just go into the ring and boom, boom, boom. Each one knows what the other one is going to do, what they're capable of. And the match is just exciting.
Definitely a cool take to start, honestly.
And honestly, I wanted to start with that because it leads to my only honorable mention. I'm just going to get it out of the way right now. The Rockers reunion versus La Resistance.
Nice. Good stuff. I love it.
Marty coming back and showing that he still had it.
Yes.
That him and Shawn could still work together as that unit to defeat the dastardly La Resistance. Such a good match. You know, it didn't have any business being as good as it was.
No.
It was very much like when Ricky Steamboat came back for that feud with Jericho. Like, there's no reason Steamboat should have still been that freaking good after that many years, after all the beatdowns and injuries that man had gone through. Yeah. Marty Jannetty has had his fair share of demons. If you followed his career, you know this. There's no reason that he should have been able to come back and be that good still. And he was. To the point where everyone thought that there was going to be a legitimate Rockers reunion. They ended up not going with that. DX reformed instead. Well, so we kind of got, you know, a little bit of what we wanted. But Marty kind of just got the shaft again there in the end.
Yes and no. And we're not going to go too far into the weeds here. We're trying to just stick to Shawn. But, you know, Marty kind of gave himself the shaft, as Marty do. But, you know, you can't take away from the awesomeness of hearing that Rockers music again on Raw. And you can't take away from the fact that he had a hell of a match with Angle on SmackDown, which, you know, was part of that whole lead up to WrestleMania and Kurt singing Sexy Kurt, which we don't talk about unless we need a real laugh and need to get the freaking phlegm out of our system to laugh that hard. Damn, that was good shit, pal. But yeah, Jannetty and Shawn on Raw for the IC title, like you said, take your pick. They were all really good there in the spring and summer '93.
Yeah. So my next official one, number 9, is the only ladder match that I do have.
Oh. Aha!
Jericho versus Shawn for the World Heavyweight title match. Now, this one, I love the match, but I still think that they didn't need the belt for this program.
Yes.
You know, I'm not bringing this match up to talk about CM Punk. That's not my issue. That's not what I'm trying to do. But the whole thing about how they got the belt off of Punk because they felt this program needed the world title, I think, is a crock of crap.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, granted, we wouldn't have been able to have a ladder match between these two because there would have been nothing to hang from the rafters. But other than that, like this feud, and especially the second time around, the WrestleMania 19 feud was okay,
Right.
but this was way more personal in my opinion.
Okay.
And so I always enjoyed this feud a little bit better. Threw out on Twitter asking people's feedback of their favorite matches for Sean. Josh Mansfield actually brought up the WrestleMania 19 one as one of his favorites.
Mm.
I prefer the second batch of matches.
Right.
And I just feel like this match and this ladder match doesn't get the respect that the Razor ones do, which is why I wanted to have this instead of those.
Makes sense.
Number 8 on my list is, I'm not even going to lie, it's there because of the moment that everybody remembers. But goddamn if it wasn't a great match as well.
Nice.
Shawn versus Shelton Benjamin.
I love it.
I mean, yeah, everybody remembers the super kick as Shelton was coming off the top rope
Yes.
and he got caught in the jaw.
Yeah.
Because that was on the Raw intro for years.
Yeah. That's why I remember it.
Itself, from start to finish, was an amazing match. And it really helped make Shelton, during that time when Shelton was trying to define himself post World's Greatest Tag Team, post Team Angle. And Shawn was just that perfect person to help carry him to that next level.
Yeah, it's hard to not get great when you're in the ring with Shawn Michaels.
Yes,
yeah. It really is.
I mean, you're already a collegiate athlete.
Yeah.
You're already coming out of a tag team down in OVW with Brock Lesnar.
I was going to say you're sparring with Brock Lesnar. Yeah.
And then being a part of Team Angle.
Yep.
And then you go into programs with Triple H and Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
No, you're not a made man, kid.
Yeah, seriously. He's wrestling in college and teaming OVW with Brock Lesnar. Let's just give him that right there in of itself. You're made for life because, if nothing else, you've had to learn how to, maneuver and wiggle out of shit. Then you work with Charlie Haas, Kurt Angle, and then you break up and you go into Jericho and Shawn Michaels and Triple H, and all that happened in 04 and 05. Crazy how he, didn't get the world title rocket strapped to his ass right away, and B, he's still going now.
Yeah. And guys, somehow he looks younger today than he did then.
But don't crack. Is that what I said? Right, Truth? Anyway,
Mikey, feel free to give your thoughts.
Jump in, brother. Come on, jump in.
Especially if you don't have some of these on your list. That's kind of the whole point, is to get other feedback from the other people on the show.
Yes.
Well, right now, those 3 matches are nowhere near my list. And I have to agree with you. Shelton damn near getting kicked out of the ring and halfway up the ramp. It was perfectly timed. And that was one of the moments of that era. If you had a VCR, or even if you know what a VCR is, kids, find one. You would play that tape back over and over again, and you would just watch that on a loop. My brother did it for years. We read out so many videotapes because we would just play back the same thing over and over and over again. If you didn't see Shelton's head go flying halfway up the ramp, you'd think that kick was fake.
Legit, like for some of us with the videotape of that match, like that moment was the equivalent of Leonardo DiCaprio getting gunned down in Quick and the Dead, or Jeff Meacham in a copy of Pinocchio. Like, it just got watched that much.
Yep.
But I digress.
Buy the shirt.
So number 7 is an emotional one.
Ruh-roh.
And it's going to be the last one that I don't think I'm going to see really on any of your guys' lists before we get to like the major heavy hitters, if you will. Shawn versus Ray from Raw as Eddie.
Oofa.
You know, to know that at Mania the following year was supposed to be Shawn versus Eddie, and for the Raw tribute show to be Shawn versus Eddie's best friend, it was just such a classic, iconic match, and it's one that gets forgotten about in the annals of time because Raw as Eddie isn't something that a lot of people go back and revisit. Just because of the
wrestling
emotion.
crazy, yeah.
It's just like Raw as Owen. It's one of those things that people watch once, maybe twice, and then it just kind of sits there collecting dust for the most part.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's on the cock if you go and you search for it.
Oh, it is.
But you've got to really be in the mood to get. You've really got to be in the mood to get depressed at the end of the day because everybody is somber because of the passing of Eddie Guerrero.
Yeah.
But the match was just so amazing.
Yes, it was.
And
yes, it was.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Professor or HBK Fanatic. I'm not sure they ever touched again one-on-one after that.
I don't think they did.
I don't think they did.
That might have been the only time they faced off one-on-one.
Which is crazy to think about. It really is.
Which just makes it even sadder because it was so good.
Yeah, that's tragedy in of itself. That the only time they touched was because of a tragedy.
If I can set up my computer right now, I will set that up.
We don't need you researching stats on the air.
No.
Don't research stats on the air. That's a bad stat boy.
No stat boy, it's bad stat boy.
So
I'm going to have that set up, but go ahead.
Okay.
Number 6 on my list, we're almost at the halfway point. And it's the final match of his initial run. Shawn versus Austin with Tyson as the guest enforcer. The match that Shawn really probably shouldn't have even wrestled.
No, absolutely not.
But somehow, some way, he gimped his ass around that ring. And unless you really paid attention, you couldn't even tell he was hurt. Because he was so good in his performance.
I would say during the first part of the match, he did very well. But you could tell toward the end he was struggling to get through and get to the finish.
Now, let me ask you, is that you looking at that today in 2022? Or was that your eyes looking at it in 1998 coming to that conclusion?
I mean, that's kind of hard for me to give a succinct answer only because, you know, back when I was 15, I just turned 15 at that point. I wasn't allowed to watch the weekly TVs because my grades were what they were. Sorry, Mom. But you know, it was you even to a 15-year-old brain, you could tell something was wrong in that he wasn't at the February show. Where was it? No Way Out. I think that was the first No Way Out.
Yeah, No Way Out of Texas.
Okay, there you go. And the fact that at least what they showed on Raw, he wasn't at the press conference except for a brief fleeting moment, I think it was. But you could tell during the match, as great of a sell as he was, you know, right, Dolph Ziggler, you could tell there was something off. And of course, you know, we found out over the previous the subsequent few weeks that there was indeed something wrong. But with watching the match itself and seeing the pain and then Hunter's promo the next night, you go, aha. So.
That's fair. I mean,
Oh, did I cut you off again? Dang it.
It's okay. Go ahead, Mike.
The brief moment you did see Shawn at that press conference, of course, the focus was on Austin. He won the title. Oh, yeah. He's the champ. He's the new guy. You saw him walking out with Shane because Shawn wanted to do something, but he just couldn't do it at that point. And then that was the last we saw of him for at least a few good years. So, and this whole thing, I was oblivious to the entire casket match incident. He hit.
Wow.
You know, I had no clue back then. Back in the 90s, I'm just seeing a match. I'm like, oh, is he hurt? I can't tell. It took me at least 15 years when Shawn came back the second time. Then they would show it over and over and over again, and then he would actually, yes, this happened. I hurt my back. That's why I'm out.
Wow. All right.
It's just an interesting thing to think about because I feel like in the heat of the moment, we don't really register what's going on.
Right.
It's not until much later that we really get the full story, you know.
Makes sense.
Right.
So at the halfway point, and this next match is an interesting one, at least to come on my end, because while I kind of prefer part one a little bit more than the one I'm going to throw up, part two, I feel like because Shawn was the person in the fall, it needs to be this one instead.
All right. Yes.
So we're going with the Backlash rematch with Benoit defending his title against Hunter and Shawn. WrestleMania 20 had been such a phenomenal match and encounter, but that ended with Benoit beating Triple H for the belt.
Very true.
Which was the way to book it. You beat the champion.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Backlash comes around, and Benoit gets the victory over HBK.
In Canada.
Yeah.
With the sharpshooter. Because let's just beat that dead horse already into the ground, even though it's already glue at this point, right? Jesus.
You know, I mean, it's one of those it is what it is situations, but I feel like this match was just as good as part one. Mm-hmm. You know, was it better than? That's questionable because we all know I have an affinity for WrestleMania 20 top to bottom.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
But it was definitely as good as its predecessor. But I felt that because Shawn was the man that tapped, I had to go with this one for the HBK list.
I digs it. That's cool.
Moving right along. Moving right along. We're gonna go back to WrestleMania.
Oh.
The year after the original encounter that we just spoke of.
Ah, yes.
The only WrestleMania I have attended.
Yes.
Angle versus HBK. And
yes, yeah. What can you say?
Honestly, arguably the two greatest performers of my generation in the ring at the same time at Mania, and quite possibly the last great match of that WrestleMania, because then it just kind of.
Well, no. There is no quite possibly, because what preceded it was the women's championship match, which was what that was. With all due respect to our girl Trish and Christy, yeah, that was what it was. And then you had this freaking, here you go, James, this banger, and then the freaking sumo matches and the title matches, which just sucked major, terrible. So, and I only say major because we almost saw Big Show's in the process of that match. So, you know, just saying. Huge.
Captain Insanos.
Yeah, that's right. We almost saw Paul's Big Shows. Anyway, Lordy, we're just going off way into the weeds on that one. Side note,
good night, everybody.
Was that not a mucker feather of a graphic to find and try to edit?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
It really is.
Yes, it's on my list. Spoiler alert, but yeah.
That quite possibly was the hardest graphic to find.
Jesus.
That was so good.
That whole Mania, just the match graphic previews suck on .com. They were terrible. Anyway.
Because they were all small and long to look like a movie marquee because the whole WrestleMania goes Hollywood.
And that's wonderful.
When it comes to something like this, It just doesn't work. Vinnie Mac, you a bastard for that shit.
Seriously, that was the last time, until next year, that Mania was in Southern California, in the Los Angeles area, and you just doing this dirty, Vinnie Mac. What the shit? But yes, this match, again, just, not much you can say that hasn't been said by every wrestling expert in the history of the damn universe.
Yeah. All right. Got 3 left. 2 of the matches are for Mania. 1 is not. Just a little bit of a spoiler alert there. Number 3 is the only other match on my list from his first run.
Ooh.
Okay.
There you go.
The Iron Man match.
Oh,
Nice. Very nice.
You know, I mean, again, I have a feeling we're going to say this a lot in my next 3, but what more can be said about this encounter? The Iron Man match is iconic. It is a tape study. If you want to be a professional wrestler, I highly recommend watching this match, start to finish, at least once a week for like the first month, because there is so much good going down in this match that it is, and you figure they go the entire 60 without a fall.
Yeah.
And they are able to keep the crowd captivated and on the edge of their seat, wondering who's going to get it. I'm going to make a bold statement here, but if they tried to put that match out today, brand new, fans would shit all over it.
Well, that's why when they did the subsequent Iron Man matches, you notice there's not been a no-fall Iron Man match since in WWE history.
No.
Because the fans post-new generation just don't have the attention span, and I'm myself in there for the record. You know, the fans post 96, 97 just would not have sat there and tolerated it, and that's a mark against the fans, not against the workers or the product.
Yeah, and we want to talk about tragedies earlier on. Like, holy hell, is that not a tragedy? Because there's some amazing performers out there in this generation.
Yep.
That I would love to see put on that kind of a banger match.
Right.
Not bangers and mash. Banger match.
That sounds good.
But
never had that.
The fans just won't go for it.
No. And that's and again, when you think about the subsequent Iron Man matches, because that was the first one that was advertised, like this is our first ever Iron Man match, of course. Brett Nolan had a freaking whole summer of what they called marathon matches in '94, but nobody talks about that because they were on house shows. I was there for one of them. But again, you know, it's not like the subsequent ones were bad by any means.
No,
it's just, you know, trying to sustain. I think if WWE had a little more faith in their audience as well, yes, the audience might shit on it, but I think that's WWE's perception that the fans would shit on it and not giving them the benefit of the doubt, because WWE hasn't given us reason to have us be given the benefit of the doubt. So it's very much a give and take of why we haven't had a classic no-fall Iron Man match since 1996.
Yeah. Number 2 is the only one of these 3 did not come from WrestleMania.
Oh.
It comes from the pay-per-view that'll be coming up this coming Saturday on the Cock.
Ah, yes. Yes. There you go.
Ah.
Non-sanctioned Triple H Shawn Michaels from SummerSlam.
That's why that freaking thing wouldn't type right. I tried typing unsanctioned. My computer's going, nope, not a word. It is to a word. But it wouldn't let me do it.
You know, this was HBK's comeback party.
Yep.
And the whole unsanctioned, non-sanctioned was a way to cover their ass because of his injury.
Yep.
But I think it also was a way to cover their ass just in case Shawn couldn't go like he wanted to go.
Yep.
Like if that match had gone over like a fart in church, there would have been no Shawn Michaels second run.
No.
It would have just ended right there.
Yep.
But the fact that Shawn was able to perform at the same caliber that he had prior to the Rumble in 98.
Yep.
And dare I say, even better than
Yep.
is why that run got over like Rover.
I would agree with that.
And like I said at the top, the first run might have the more iconic matches. You know, your Iron Man match, your ladder matches, your matches against Austin, your screw jobs, etc.
Yeah.
The best matches, I feel, come from the second run.
Yep.
And this match right here was the start of all that.
Yep.
Which brings me to my number.
Go
ahead, Mikey.
Question on this match. Was this the match where they kind of pulled back the curtain and they actually showed Hunter and Shawn in the back lying on stretchers, getting medical attention, whatnot? Or was that another match that they had that was just as brutal?
I think that was the Rumble Last Man Standing match, if I remember right. Because I mean they had quite a few matches where they beat the dog out of each other in that 2-year run they were feuding. So it could have been that match. It could have been the Taboo Tuesday match. Although Hunter walked out of there pretty much unscathed with Michael's knee just being wrecked. It could have been it could have been after their Hell in a Cell match at Bad Blood. There was a lot of stuff that they put each other through in those 2 years. So
okay,
and you know, you mentioned Bad Blood, and I apologize in advance for putting this out in the atmosphere. But if one of our viewers can put together a video package of the HBK Triple H rivalry scored to Taylor Swift's Bad Blood, I think that would be just freaking hilarious.
Great. Now we're canceled like the Kings. If you know, you know. If you don't, it's okay too.
You know what? We may be canceling like the Kings, but at least we don't have a player that's played in the Stanley Cup Finals for 3 consecutive years and lost. Right, Corey Perry?
You little ferret-faced piece of shit. Anyway, go ahead, Jay. What's your number 1, JJ?
Which brings
Captain,
me
do I
to
know
my
that
number
man?
one. Brings me to my number 1. And honestly, if anybody knows me, it should not be a surprise when it comes to Shawn Michaels, number 1.
Nice.
The original WrestleMania encounter from WrestleMania 25. Now, I don't know if it'll pop up on your guys' list. Again, Josh Mansfield says the rematch, career versus streak,
right,
is better. Was one of his 3 favorites.
Right.
But I just feel that this match was so much better.
Okay.
And I don't even really know what it is that makes me feel that way, except for how long it took for us to get there.
Yeah.
You know, the last 2 men in the Rumble 2 years, or the year prior to this. The first 2 in the Rumble this year.
I think you're right the first time.
In any event.
Yeah.
The length of time it took for us to get to that match.
And, you know, you mentioned Bad Blood. When you think about their first real run with each other was 10 years before their end of Rumble showdown. Like, it's crazy how long that circle frickin' took to form itself.
Yes.
And including the 2 matches with Hunter after the matches with Shawn. I mean, that was a, you know, it was billed as the end of an era. God, it took an era to get there. 13 friggin' years.
Right?
Saying. No, I'm sorry.
There we go.
Yeah. 15 years, whatever. Close enough.
So there we go. There
Good
is
stuff.
my top 10 Shawn Michaels.
Good match.
I dig it. Before we get to Mikey's list, since we're going to go ahead and have the opportunity to edit this in post because we're pre-taping this. Spoiler alert, kids. Let's go ahead and make sure we get JJ's plug in for August because JJ has a birthday in August. So with that, Renegade's reviews this month, along with other things on the Casa D-18 Studios, will be centered around JJ and August. But let's take a look at that video as we get ready for the 8th month of the year. God, this year's going fast.
Thank you very much, Jeff, for throwing to that trailer. I greatly appreciate it here. I was actually kind of curious how we were going to do this, if we were going to have trailers before or during, and it just makes sense to kind of throw them as bumpers in between here for this one.
Indeed.
So we've gotten done with my list now. I'm curious to know what you guys out there thought. If you've been watching along the live stream, the premiere, leaving your comments over here. On demand, your comments down where? Down
there. Even though that was an NWO thing, but that's okay. It's all good.
Mikey, it's your turn now. What are your top 10 Shawn Michaels matches?
All right, here we go, boys and girls. You're going to get a history lesson. If you don't know these matches, look them up and follow along. Number 10, the very first match that I believed started the entire Heartbreak Kid saga. It took place on December 28, 1991. It was on the good old TV show called Superstars. This was the one of the very few times where the Rockers actually got a tag team title match. They fought Hawk and Animal, the LOD, and this was the match prior to the barbershop incident. So in the match, Vince McMahon is laying heavily on a write-up in the then WWF magazine that the Rockers are having problems. Yeah, right. So in the match, the finish of the match is that Marty is being held up by Animal, I believe it is. Shawn goes to drop kick Marty so that when Marty and Animal fall, Marty's on top of the Animal, and they would get the pin. That didn't happen. Animal turned around, took the kick, landed on top of Marty, and LOD retains. So, and of course, the entire match, McMahon and Lawler, they're going, oh, one needs the other, all this good stuff, blah, blah, blah. We're talking back and forth. Or it was Mr. Perfect, actually. Not
I said, well, yeah, it was Devil and Jerry,
It wasn't Lawler yet. It was Mr. Perfect, tag team specialist. And then, of course, the next week, starting off 1992, the barbershop. But this was the very first match that started everything to start the heel HBK.
Yeah.
Back then.
When you figure, Mikey, they were really having, they built and built and built that. They were having troubles in the SummerSlam. Wow, so far back I go with 91. Survivor Series elimination tag match. They had a struggle there between the two of them, and they've been kind of minorly beefing on TV pretty much throughout the entire autumn and into the winter season. So. And the fact they got a tag title match right after Christmas and they still couldn't get the job done, you knew something was building to a head.
Right. But still a good match nonetheless.
Great match. Absolutely.
All right. Number 9. Now, this was by far the scariest moment in my HBK career. This match took place November 11th, 1995. This is the infamous collapse match. This is the match where Owen hit the Curry on the back of Sean's head, and Owen, they were going back and forth for a little bit. Hits a good move, goes to hit a pose, and then the next thing you see is he grabs his forehead and he hits the canvas hard.
Yeah.
And for years, 15 years tops, I thought that this was real. I thought, oh my God, what has happened? Luckily, folks, he came back a couple months later, 96 in his run towards the title and all that.
On the Rumble,
but
yep.
you never knew if it was scripted or not. You had to read his book to find out the story. But still, me being the brand new Heartbreak Kid fan, I'm like, oh my God, man, he kicked him hard. And then, of course, they would tease the concussion angle considerably, especially in the rematch that they had, because they did have a rematch title for title, and Owen had to bring it up. It's like, I kicked you in the head once, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, when you think about that match was taped on the 11th and didn't air until after Survivor Series, so they had a whole week where in the pre-internet days nobody knew except the people that were in the crowd. And they still got away with pulling it off. That this is never done. And Shawn, you mentioned Shawn's book. You got to go dark. You got to get. Dead air. Vince and Jerry go off the headsets. They're just Vince in the ring when Shawn is being tended to. That was one of those. I know most of this stuff's fake, but this doesn't look good. So that was a really cool element. You mentioned the fact that Owen. Had a match with Shawn later. Yeah, Shawn wins the Rumble, and Owen gets a shot to take that shot away from him, number one. Number two, if Owen wins that match, he faces the winner of the Brett Diesel cage match the same night. So it could have been Brett versus Owen for the championship, WrestleMania. So people are going, ooh, where are they going with this? Great storytelling in a time where the company's creatives really shit on it, I think, unnecessarily.
Number 8.
Yeah.
We go into the later years. We're going to go all the way to zoom up to TLC 2009. And this match, the TLC match where DX properly and finally became the tag team champion.
Yes.
My God, look at Big Show with that bald head. Jeez, look at him trying to look cool in that graphic. Oh my God, what was he thinking?
You know what? I think we cracked on Paul on his Big Shows enough today.
Yeah, I think so. DX, I should have been tag
At least he wasn't using the god-awful Mac 10 song at that point.
Oh my God. I forgot all about that till you just said it. Oh, you suck.
Good point. I believe that in the very beginning, DX should have been tag team champions. Of course, this was during the naughty years, of course, you know. I mean, if you hate them so much, give them all the belt. Give Shawn the heavyweight title. Give Hunter the IC title, and do what the two dudes with attitudes did a few years prior. But it never worked out. And then of course Shawn had to go away with his back issues and you know the reformation years, and that took a long time. But it finally happened in 2009, and they didn't have the belts long, but they finally got them, and that's why this match is on that list.
There you go.
There it is, right there. The next match.
I'm loving this so far.
You loving this?
CD. I hate you, Jay. I hate this show, Jay.
I'm loving this so far because you're coming up with all kinds of stuff that I hadn't thought of, and you're giving amazing logic for it. So yeah, keep this going, Stat Boy.
Good stuff.
The most infamous match with the worst ending possible. November 1997, The Screwjob. The focus was all about Bret, but Shawn made this match, you know, he was put in a sticky situation, okay? Yes, you know, Bret had just as much as this as Shawn did. We know this. But Shawn still made the match work, and of course, the after stories, you know, I've got nothing to do with this. My hands are tied. Did you have anything to do with that? No, my conscience is clear on this. And I saw that. I think I saw that before or after I saw the whole confidential story when Shawn admitted. I mean, if you're sitting there and you're watching Confidential and you see Shawn admit, you know, was I part of it? Yes. I almost took my remote control and threw it at the screen. I'm like, you bastard, how could you do that? Then I learned the redemption story. Then I'm like that. But then, you know, you get the backstage stuff and all that. Overall, you know, the finish could have been better, you know, but Vince had all other plans. You know, Shawn learning how to reverse the sharpshooter could have been a good finish. You know, and had Bret could have tapped out, you know, but he didn't want to lose Shawn in Montreal. But I was contemplating big time to make this match higher on the list, but because of, you know, all the controversy and stuff, I said, no, it's fine right where it is.
You know, I'm gonna say something here, and it might be a hot take, maybe not, Jeff. Maybe me and you have discussed this on the air before, but I honestly feel like if you take the finish out of this match, which of course is the whole controversy, the screw job,
right?
This is a phenomenal match.
Oh yeah,
that I don't think gets talked about enough from a match standpoint because everyone's focused on the screw job finish.
Right. It's definitely a hell of a fight before they get in the ring. And that's where the majority of it took place was not even in the ring. It was all over the friggin' place. So I definitely agree that the match as a whole does not get near talked about enough, and it should, quite frankly.
At least not for the positive aspects.
Yeah, that's a thing. It doesn't get near enough the love because there's so much bad with it.
Yeah,
because of what happened to Bret.
It's very much like the Mania 20 match.
Yeah.
You know, these days it doesn't get talked about as much because of who the victor was and what happened with that tragedy.
Yeah, it's a shame.
But it's a phenomenal match that needs to be looked at and examined and talked about.
I would agree.
You know, this match, from a match standpoint, doesn't get talked about enough for the positives within said match. It only gets talked about because of the negative finish.
Yeah, the last 2 minutes of the pay-per-view.
And I still, to this day, I don't care how long it's been, agree with what Bret said, that He could have dropped the belt the next night on Raw, which, considering they were still losing the war at that point, would have popped a hell of a rating to see Bret Hart get beat on Raw.
And considering the fact that they did a freaking forfeit angle with the IC title the very next month with Austin and Rock, could have done a forfeit, could have done any number of things instead of doing Bret how dirty they did him.
Yeah.
You're absolutely right. They just, and it's funny that Mikey brings up Confidential. He didn't even admit to his own culpability at that point. You got to remember that, Mikey. He, yes, I knew. How I knew is because I was told. It's like, no, Muckerfather, you were on the phone call. Hunter's the one that, suggested pulling the trigger. Jerry Briscoe's the one that actually pulled the damn trigger. But, you were up in that witch's brew as much as anybody there, Heartbreak Kid. So let's just make sure we're being completely Christian about this and redeemed and not completely bullshit the audience like you did for another how many more years before we actually talked about that? Yeah. So if we're gonna call a spade, we might as well make sure that thing is good and pointy.
So that's my 2 cents on the screw job.
Yeah.
I seriously contemplated having that one too.
Yeah.
But again, much like the ladder matches, I wanted to go with Iron Man and go with something a little bit more positive.
Yes.
As opposed to the negative. But I was praying to God someone brought up the screw job. Thank you, Stat Boy. Continue.
Good job, brother.
Next match was we briefly talked about it during Jay's list. He said the best match was at WrestleMania 25. I'm going the year after. I'm saying the second match was a little bit better, career versus streak. Now, I will admit, when I was watching this match as it happened live, I was just not getting into it because I'm thinking as much as I loved HBK, there was no way the streak was going to break. I was more focused on, okay, this is it for Shawn. He's done. And it was the one moment before the pinfall, Taker is begging. He's saying, Shawn, stay down. And Shawn's like, in a clean way saying, not going to happen. And the moment that I perked up, we were sitting in Mama's house watching this match, and the infamous slap happened. And Taker's eyes just bugged out in the back of his head. He picked him up, he tombstoned him. I'm like, what the hell were you thinking? You don't hit the head of the snake. You don't go after, you don't attack the fangs. And then, of course, 1, 2, 3, and it's finally over, and I'm just sitting there back in my corner like, damn, that was a good match. But why did you have to slap him? So I know one moment doesn't really make a match, but that's why I slightly give the edge to WrestleMania 26 as opposed to WrestleMania 25.
You don't tug on Superman's cape. You don't spit into the wind, and you don't slap The Undertaker.
At WrestleMania. Or ever, really, but definitely not WrestleMania.
And I also think that's the one question I regretted not asking Shawn when I met him. I'm like, what? Why did you slap Taker? Why?
Well, considering it was a cattle call, we were going about 95 miles an hour through that line. It would have been kind of a bitch to pull off a question like that. So,
exactly. Excellent match. I love that match.
All right.
We are halfway.
Good stuff so far.
Number 5, a first. The first Elimination Chamber match.
Oh, Jesus. We're going to talk about Shawn in those shit brown tights.
And that god-awful goofy haircut. Yeah.
Well, I mean, we got the peace tights of Randy Orton in, so we got to get the shit brown Shawn tights.
So, all right. So for the record, anybody pay attention at home still, this is pre-edit, so it may or may not make it. We've talked about shit tights, we've talked about Paul's big shows, and we've talked about Randy Orton and those god-awful tight peach tights. Way too visceral around the area of where we're talking about for this show. Just talking about that. The Heartbreak and his kids. Anyway, good grief. Go ahead, Mikey. Now we're actually putting shit on the match. Let's talk about the shit tights in the match. There we go. Go ahead. There you go. That's it.
Well, I put this match in here because, one, it was the first of its kind. He ended up winning the World Heavyweight Championship because of that. His first official with the big gold belt. And of course, that's your big gold belt that I took the picture with. I had to throw that in there. So there it is. There's the belt. Look at that. Look at that big smile. You know. Also around this time, I believe I wasn't certain, but he wore the Philippians 4:13 shirt at some point at this time. One of the greatest Bible verses I believe. I can do anything at the paraphrasing. I know I'm not saying it correctly. I apologize to all you Bible people out there who know the verse. Paraphrasing.
I think I can do all things through Christ Jesus who strengthens me.
There you go.
Yeah, that's the wow. And I'm
not a religious person.
I was gonna say that gets the golf stuff. That was good stuff. Very good.
And I'm the one bringing the PK cross, which I actually had at one point too. I have no idea what happened to it. They had a little pure cross that I would wear around my neck. No,
I remember.
This was the redemption story, and at the end of the day.
It probably ended up wherever your autographed copy of Las Vegas signed by James Caan is.
Right. Jeez.
Yeah.
Looking back, that's a major bitch now.
I know, man. The purge.
But I digress.
But at the end of the redemption story, this was, the whole thing after finding God, and you find God and you get the World Heavyweight Championship.
I crap on his tights during this match, but you're right. The match on its own was a tremendous match, and it was one of those head scratchers because you saw the structure and you didn't really know what was going to be able to be accomplished within the confines of the structure. You see the chain surrounding it, but there's a roof, so how can you really climb out of it? Yeah. There's the grate on the outside surrounding the ring. Okay, that spells disaster for some back body drops, which met over the years.
Yes.
You've got the pods, which thank God it wasn't Kurt Angle and Shane McMahon in there, because they'd still be trying to overhead suplex and break that shit. Jesus. We thought that Dwayne went long at the Hall of Fame. Holy hell, they'd still be trying to crack those things. But I think it was RVD getting up there, as botchy as it was for that 5-star frog splash, that just kind of made us go, okay, I don't know if this is something they can do again. But then they've done it so many times that they ended up with its own pay-per-view.
Well, yeah, but keep in mind, Jay, when we went with the 5-star frog splash, he freaking destroyed Hunter's trachea. So,
it's not exactly a bad thing, depending on where you're looking at it. It just means we can't get a game promo for about 3 weeks. Damn it.
Wow. I love it.
You got a line, but you're not wrong. Anyway.
Yeah.
And that's around the time when he had Flair with him anywhere, so it's not like Nate couldn't have cut the promos for Hunter.
Oh, there you go. Let's at least 2002 Ric Flair cutting a promo about Hunter having no voice. Let's throw that into the universe. Good grief. I couldn't even go out and drink all night with him because he couldn't swallow. Woo! Jesus. No swallow jokes in the crowd. Shut up out there, you dirty bastards.
None at all. Match number 4.
This is the most visceral Dad's ever done. It's all Mikey's fault, clearly.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. Me for everything. Why don't? It's always my fault.
Always.
When in doubt, blame the...
Sorry, we got the reverse Snitsky here. With Snitsky, it wasn't his fault. With Statboy, it's always his fault.
Well,
Continue,
no.
Statboy.
Yeah.
As long as Mikey didn't start putting freaking baby dolls across his apartment, we're in good shape. Anyway.
I don't have any. Match number 4.
I bet you he could punt a baby doll better than the Titans can kick a field goal. But I digress.
Buy this shirt.
Oh, that's...
Buy this shirt and give the funds to the Titans so they can actually hire a kicker. Anyway, there you go. So again, to keep score on this front, the non-religious guy quoted the Bible correctly, and the non-football fan ragged on the Titans. Let's just go ahead and keep on moving along now. Jesus
But what else is he going to throw out there? The non-baseball.
We still got my list to
Still
go
got
to, plus the rest of yours.
We'll find out. We still got plenty of time. Jeff still has his list.
Okay, the number 4 match. Sentimental here. Took place on my 20th birthday, October 5th, 1997. Bad Blood, Hell in a Cell, the very first concept of Hell in a Cell. I picked this match also because of the build-up. This was the whole thing, you know. I'm not afraid of the dark. I'm not afraid of the boogeyman. And of course, Taker gave us the excellent line, "You better give your soul to the Lord because the rest of your scrawny ass belongs to me."
That's right.
And of course, then there was the casket incident where the casket's at ringside. Shawn's like, "Ooh, where's Undertaker?" You know, "Okay, Hunter, I know you're in there." And then here's Hunter at the top of the stage, and like, "Well, if you're in there, then who's in?" You know, and he grabs him. They go into the casket and whatnot. And of course, you know, you can't forget about good old Mayor Jacobs making his debut at this pay-per-view. And let's face it, guys, if that didn't happen, Shawn would not have won this match. So he owes his entire match thank you to one Glenn Jacobs, a.k.a. Kane. Because let's face it, Kane comes in, Shawn gets the pin and all that good stuff, wins Hell in a Cell, retains the title, goes on, whatever. But it was just another first that had to go into this top 10 match because, you know, we already have the first Elimination Chamber. Why not? We got the first win with the World Heavyweight Championship. Why not first Hell in a Cell?
It's funny. People forget the part about the fact that the Hell in a Cell match was also a #1 contenders match for Survivor Series.
Yeah.
That as advertised. So, you know, Kane not only did what he did to his brother, but he also cost him a shot at the championship.
Because Taker had just lost the title to Brett at SummerSlam thanks to
Shawn Michaels. Yeah, so, yep.
The circle is complete.
All right.
All right. We're now in the top 3. This match, and what I've been doing basically is I've just been throwing out the matches that go with the moments because every match has a story.
Absolutely.
The July 4th edition of Monday Night Raw in 2005 featured this match, Hogan teaming up with HBK to face Carlito and Kurt Angle. Now, it's not really the match that I'm going with on this, but it's the moment after, which made me yell out at the top of my lungs at the Casa D-18 household, "What the f*** are you thinking?" Shawn turns on Hogan out of the blue. This is another thing you don't do in wrestling. You don't go after Hulk Hogan, not especially in this year. If you think the genie dropping his jaw in Aladdin was big, mine it hit the floor, went down the stairs, and went all the way out to Bellflower Boulevard. That's how far my jaw went out there. I was a wreck that day. I'm like, what is my hero doing? Going after the second best hero that I believed in? I was always a Shawn guy first. I wasn't a Hogan guy until later. And I'm like, if he wasn't going to end his career then, Hogan was going to do it. Now, of course, I could have easily picked the match afterwards at SummerSlam, but that match was so corny because Shawn's flopping around like a dead fish after every punch. You know? I mean, I get that you're supposed to sell the move, but you're not supposed to oversell it to the point where The Rock is like, "Dude, I did that 10 years ago."
Well, you've got to keep in mind from Shawn's perspective, the reason he oversold was because he really should have won that match. There was nothing to gain from Hogan winning. Hogan should have had no problem putting Michaels over. You know, active competitor going over the legend. You know, Rocky had been able to go over Hogan. There's no reason Shawn shouldn't have been able to go over there. And when you figure that Shawn was the one basically carrying the angle, let alone the match, It's a wonder he didn't break his back again at SummerSlam, carrying Hogan's dead ass weight the whole time.
Woo-hoo.
Real talk.
Brutal.
I think part of the reason you got so wrapped up in that storyline, though, and the heel kick, and I apologize in advance if this gets you a little emotional, but it was your boy turning on Blaine's boy. And Blaine had been gone for a number of years at that point.
That's right.
And that was your best friend before I really came into the picture.
That's right.
Your boy turned on Blaine's boy.
Yep.
So I think that's part of what made that angle such a wreck for you in the first place. And may I just say, those tights that Angle was wearing, far and beyond my favorite singlet that he ever had.
Oh, yeah,
the
absolutely.
Big old eagle, because the eagle was on the front, too.
Yep.
That was always my favorite Angle singlet.
Yep.
Is that big old bald eagle there.
Yep. And I'll just throw in a little bit of praise for Hulk here because that didn't happen throughout the rest of this conversation. I am so, as a Hulkamaniac, duh, Jeff, right?
Brother. Oh.
Very good. I wish he'd gone to the long pants sooner than he did in WCW because I always liked the long pants look with the tie-dye, be it the black and white with the lightning bolts or the red and yellow tie-dye. I thought the freaking once he went off, the gas and wasn't, a 330-pound balloon, I just thought the pants looked classier.
That's
for
fair.
Me. All right, anyway.
All right.
Damn.
Number 2. From 2009. We're going to go to Survivor Series, the triple threat match with HBK and John Cena and Triple H. And, of course, the aftermath, of course, because the start of the match was a shocker. I mean, DX was inseparable. DX are their best friends. Ring the bell, ring a ding ding, and the next thing you see is a foot coming right to that big nose of Triple H.
Oh, jeez.
And then you get the look of Cena like, what the heck just happened? You get the look of Shawn like, okay, I'm going to win this. And, they go at it, and Triple H makes his way back into the ring. Overall, it was a great match. And then, of course, the picture there is the next night where, what was up with the kick? And he's like, well, it was for the title. Sorry about that. Besides, you were going to put me in the pedigree first. No, I wasn't. You were going to put me in the pedigree first. Don't make this about me. You kicked me 3 times. The first one I didn't even see coming. Bing whap. You took my head off. Well, I got that whole little lazy eye thing going.
Oh my God, I forgot about that part.
And then of course, so that match is always the one I go all to. That one is like just a little bit below I just kick Stan, because go ahead and explain yourself, Shawn. What were you thinking about there? And he kicked him 3 times. 3 times. He couldn't land the kick just right. He wanted to kick Cena. Cena probably said in the back, no, you're not kicking me. It's not going to happen.
Oh
So Triple H had to go, fine, we'll take 3 kicks.
People gloss over the later DX moments way too much because that's especially Shawn. Because Shawn was so just the biggest prick in the history of the universe during the first DX run. He went out of his way to be a complete friggin' goober when they got back together. Like, he did that with purpose and intent, and it was great.
People gloss over the second run of the Hunter Shawn DX because of the PG era.
I know.
DX was not supposed to be PG. DX was everything that was anti-PG.
But that was what made it great.
Let's just not forget the speech there at the presidential podium. Right. Between the hours of We will not use the words.
yeah. But having them,
shit! Watch your fucking mouth. God damn it! Like that was DX.
Less dick references. Sorry, there'll be less references to our enormous genitalia. It's like, because that's better. Paul and his big shows.
Oh, Jody just stands there trying to stay stone-faced the whole time.
Jody's just, God love Jody. She's just, funny, at the end, she's just like, God damn it, shaking her head like fucking assholes. But yeah, that was what made the PGTX so good, Jay, is because they had to stay in that little bubble. So instead of becoming just raunchy and gross or whatever, they became complete friggin' dorks.
And for a while there, the way they would get Shawn out of the situation so that Triple H could do something a little bit more naughty was great. Yeah. You know, but that's why the PGDX gets shit on so much. Is because DX was the furthest thing from PG.
Right.
So.
But yeah,
all right.
but Mikey, but moments like Mikey's talking about where they can goof and have fun or whatever. When the bell rings and the title's on the line, Shawn gets right back into Shawn Michaels mode. Like, all right.
Oh, yeah. And before Mikey gives his number one, what was bigger, Hunter's nose or his ego? Continue.
Paul's big shows. Anyway,
I don't know. Miz's are pretty huge according to
massive. There's a shirt and everything. That's right. Buy that T-shirt just so Mike can get some more dick money. I mean, yeah. What? Anyway, go ahead. Carry on. This is the worst show we've ever done. This is so visible. This is terrible. Oh my god.
And do not reflect WWE in any way.
That's right.
To steal a quote from both of your exes, this show done got butt fucky. Mikey, what is your number one?
Accurate.
The defining match in good old HB's Cake's career, a match that also created a family. It was already brought up. It's the Iron Man match. 1 hour of two of the top guys going at it back and forth. Who's going to get that first pinfall? You never know. This was, and of course, the family I reference is our other brother Bruce. This match started what became our brotherhood because he was in passing. He was talking about Brett, and I was talking about Shawn. Next thing you know, we're having lunch at the table, and we're still brothers to this day. It was a great match. You know, I never even knew matches like this existed. Going back to the Flair Harley race days, when Flair would say, you know, I wrestled Harley for an hour. You're like, you went for an hour? What is that like? And, you know, in fact, I even had a video copy of this match, and I was watching it back a second time in high school. And I'm trying to do print shop stuff as a print shop attendant, and we were making too much noise, and my teacher didn't like it at the time. And just after the big superplex, with about 2 minutes left to go, my teacher had taken the remote control to the VCR, and he turned the match off. And we're like, "Hey, what's going on here?" He's like, "Get your work done." We're like, "Okay, sorry, professor, my bad." Like I say, it's a classic match. It set the standard for all Iron Man matches, and at the end, the boyhood dream became reality. He got his first title, his first major title, which started off the legacy and the career of good old HBK. There's my list.
I don't know what happened there. That's weird.
Oh, we lost the graphic.
Yeah, but my freaking thing glitched. Sorry about that. All right. Anyway.
All right. You're up.
But before I get to my list, I want to make sure I throw this out there. Now, I don't have a full trailer for this or anything, but we do have a very special episode coming up. A Rare Dads on a Thursday, JJ. And this is one that you spearheaded. You really did, and I definitely want to give it the love. So, I mean, let's just go ahead and make it happen.
So there you have it. Special presentation of the dads, not always on Wrestling This Week. Jeff and I are going to be taking a look at the definitive rankings of the Four Horsemen, the most elite stable in professional wrestling history.
Symbol of excellence. No, I'm not going to.
You know, this is something we talked about doing for November, around Starrcade time, because as far as we could find, that was around the time that the Horsemen were formed, was November. And so
it's when they first really started acknowledging themselves as the Horsemen, right? Yeah.
So we wanted to try and do something around that time, but then the Ric Flair final match thing came up, and you've got all the content this weekend going into that, you know, the roast of Ric Flair, the final match, the Starrcast,
the Horseman panel.
Of course, you've got SummerSlam over on WWE's end, but then you got the Horseman panel, like you said. So it's like it just made sense to do it while it's topical.
Yep.
And just get it out there. Gotta draw money.
That's it.
So it's just one of those things. And I originally, like Jeff said, I spearheaded this. I'm the one that came up with the ranking.
Yeah, you did.
I came up from 10 to 1, what I thought the best to worst was, and I submitted it to Jeff once we got approved to do this topic. I was like, this is what I think. And he looked the list over, and he was like, I really can't argue this list.
No.
As much as he despises Paul Roma, even he acknowledges that Paul Roma is not in the worst incarnation of the Horseman.
No. But he's
Sid Vicious, who backstage tried to stab Arn Anderson, is not in the worst incarnation of the Horseman.
This Horseman cry makes me sick.
JEFF, JARRETT, the man who to this day, Arn and Rick both acknowledge was never a Horseman, even though Arn took his hand and raised it in the air, acknowledging him as one in the ring, is not in the worst incarnation of the Horseman.
God, who can it be at this point?
What is the worst incarnation of the Horseman? You're going to have to tune in Thursday after the No DQ review and find out.
And we will be live, 100% live. Woo!
Oh, yeah.
That's it.
So you have heard my top 10 HBK matches.
Yes.
You have heard Stat Boy's top 10 HBK matches. And there have been a couple that were the same.
Yes.
Yeah.
West Coast Professor, Jeff Meacham, bring us home. What do you have for your top 10 Shawn Michaels matches?
Well, I will say this. There are 1, 2... I'll say 2.5. And I'll explain the half later. Matches that were on one of your two lists.
Okay.
Okay.
I also did not mention the ladder matches. Not because they aren't great, but as you said, they get the press, they get the love, they get they get all the hype on them because they should. I also didn't include the Triple H Shawn Michaels match from SummerSlam because, again, as great as that was to have Shawn have that moment, it's been talked about, right?
Yeah.
So we're good on that. So I went with stuff that, I felt were great matches, got great ratings from people that, tend to live in NorCal, and, some people actually enjoy that person's opinion, but the matches he rated, are pretty spot on the Shawn Michaels front. So I kind of went with that and kind of just, remembering what I didn't remember, I went back and watched because the Peacock is a thing, and as is the YouTube stuff. So
there you go.
It was easy to take the Mikey approach and actually get a visual muscle memory on that and remember how good these were. So this is what I came up with. May God help me. Number 10 is from The Action Zone. Anybody remember that show? From 1994, Joe Diffie. The original Shawn and Diesel as tag team champions versus Razor Ramon and the 1-2-3 Kid. This is from September of 94. So
Wow.
This is Click versus Click. This is when Shawn and Diesel were still heel Shawn and Diesel before Shawn had super kicked Kevin just one too many times for Kevin's liking. And they had a hell of a match on a freaking random episode of the Action Zone. But it was the first time that I recall that the acknowledged members of the Clique, because Hunter wasn't even in the company yet, if you recall. He was still Jean-Paul Levesque in WCW. So this is the first time that I recall TV-wise that the members of the Clique were all together in the ring for a match.
Interesting.
That was kind of cool, and the match itself was good. They're actually talking about that match on, I think, Twitter a couple weeks ago. Of course, it was brought up by X-Pac. I think Kevin talked about it on his podcast recently too. By the way, Click This it needs to get more press. I'm not exactly a fan of the anchor guy Oliver, but I think it's John Oliver, whatever his name is. But Kevin's always been a great storyteller, and he's got that dry humor, so can't recommend his podcast enough. But yeah, it's one of those you forget about it because it was on the random Sunday show. Nobody freaking remembers that existed anyway. So
yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of the Action Zone. Maybe once or twice in passing, but
yeah. Well, the Action Zone premiered with what was billed as the final Brett versus Owen match, and it turned out to be that on television. So that show has some hidden gems along the way. Should be on the network. I don't know why it's not, or Peacock, or wherever the hell you live. But it's not. Another one that I had to dig and find, because I remember seeing the match on tape later, and it's not easily accessible on the apps that WWE provides, but I did find it on YouTube in its entirety from Madison Square Garden in 1989. You talk about the Horsemen, Jay.
There we go.
Wow.
Rockers and the Brainbusters.
Brainbuster!
That's right. Thank you for that. Oh, hey! If you don't know, you have been watching us the last 15 years. That's okay. It's all good. Again, you've got the technicians that were the Brainbusters, Arn and Tully, of course, the former Horsemen at the time. You've got the tag team specialists, the Rockers. Just turn them loose in the garden and watch the greatness unfold. And it's they're at the garden, they're at home, the WWE's home, so there's that little extra spark in everybody's step. And again, the fact that the Brainbusters got as short a run as they did with the titles, and the fact the Rockers don't technically have an acknowledged run with the titles, both of those facts is bullshit.
Kind of like Ted DiBiase with an acknowledged WWF Championship run.
Seriously, within the same frame of time. Like 889 is a bunch of bullshit non-title runs. Ugh, terrible. But yeah,
So was this the turnbuckle broke?
No, that was
against
the
the
Heart
Foundation. 2 out of 3 falls.
Yeah, I was just pointing out the fact that neither one of these teams have either a good long run or any run at all with WWF tag titles, which is bullcrap.
Because we all know that Vince only caters to the stars he created. He did not create the Horsemen.
Nope. Yeah,
and then unfortunately the rope broke in that match against the Hearts, and so the match got thrown out and never acknowledged.
Well, it would have been acknowledged even with the rope, except the fact that Neidhart, got his contract squared away. So, all right, didn't happen. So, because Neidhart was out, he was done. He was over. He was out of the company, and then it was like, I'll figure it out. So, my number 8 is the one I mentioned that's a half, because Jay, this came up on your list, and you said take your pick of the matches they had on Raw that year. I went with the match they had in July for the Intercontinental title. Shawn already regained the championship. Diesel was there with him in that god-awful white jacket. Dude, if Diesel was any more the Fonz in 1993, I defy somebody to find me a bigger reference. Because Henry started with the freaking ugly-looking white jacket or whatever, because he was, oh my God, the freaking Black Alert was too hood to be on network television. Can't wear that, and he's got to be with the bike. Got to be with the bike at all times. And then it evolved into the leather jacket that's now the Smithsonian. And same with Diesel. Came out there with that god-awful white-looking tracksuit-looking thing or whatever the hell it was. Then he got the black leather and became, Diesel proper. But, if I remember right, this was the match. Great match, by the way. Again, Jannetty in 93, when his head was screwed on straight, couldn't have a bad match, especially with Shawn. But I think this was the match where after the match, Shawn came out to ringside when Vince and I think Bobby and Randy were standing there, and Shawn just completely just goes off the cuff and just starts rambling on about how great he is and everything. It was so funny just to watch it unfold. But even 93 Shawn, of course, was not exactly Mr. Sensitivity, to say the very least. So that was fun to watch unfold, and just Vince being all flustered because it's live television. Vince doesn't know what the hell's about to happen, and Shawn Michaels is a live mic. Never good. But the match itself, again, you were absolutely right when you said take your pick of their matches 93. I mean, you had the match where Jannetty became champion with Perfect's interference. You had the rematch in Albany where Diesel debuted, which is the house show, so you have to really dig for that one. But there's a lot of great stuff in there. Even their match at the 93 Royal Rumble, which, should have been the jumping off point for Jannetty really getting to run. Sherry was there, in a neutral corner. Then she turned on Shawn finally. There was so much potential there had Marty actually been 100% centered and ready to go.
Yeah.
Number 7 is one of those where Jannetty was 100% ready to go, as was Shawn, as were their opponents at the 1991 Royal Rumble. The Orient Express. And yes, that's not Sato and Tanaka. That's Kato and Tanaka, a.k.a. Paul Diamond and Pat Tanaka, Bad Company from the AWA, which they had a little bit of history with the AWA with the Midnight Rockers. Just a little bit.
Just a smidge.
Just a smidge. Again, these two teams could have a bad match in the AWA, in the WWF, anywhere they went. And the fact that they got a showcase on a Big Four, and unless you were in the know, you didn't know it was Paul Diamond under the mask as Kato. You thought just another gentleman from the Orient that was teaming with Pat Tanaka, but not Paul Diamond. But yeah, looking back at the time, great tag team match for fresh fan, good old JM. I mean, I'm 3 months into my fandom at this point. Great friggin' match. And then you go back and realize, holy shit, that was Midnight Rockers and Bad Company in the WWF. Like, oh my God. Like, it's even better when you think about it. We now go into everything else from this point on is a Shawn solo career stuff.
Okay.
Now, granted, Shawn was already Intercontinental Champion by the time he was tag team champions with Diesel, but this one, you guys both mentioned the Iron Man match. Can't say as I blame you, because one of the greatest things ever. But people, even now, for some reason, sleep on the follow-up against Diesel at In Your House, Good Friends, Better Enemies. And I know who does sleep on this match is Mad Dog Vachon, because his leg was involved in the finish of the match. So, yeah. Damn it. We've had ball jokes and shit jokes, and now we're having prosthetic legs. This is the most visceral dads in the history of the last 10 years. Anyway, good lordy.
Mad Dog Vachon, who was being Zach Gallen before there was a Zach Gallen.
That's right. Mad Dog Vachon, who was one-legged then. Anyway, just go ahead and keep on moving on.
But yeah, I digress.
I digress. Just, you know what? JeffMeachamNetwork.com, the merch section, just buy all the shirts. It's whatever. God, we're plugging everything. Buy the shirt. Actually, I take that back. That's the spring store. ProWrestlingTees.com. Jeff Meacham Network is where you find the current stuff. Yeah, Shawn and Kevin, as good as people, agreeably say that their match at WrestleMania the previous year was very good. Just the finish was what it was because of Sid and the referee and whatever. But, man, these two, Kevin knowing that he was on his way out and that it was going to be his last pay-per-view main event, and he's in there with his buddy, these two guys just went in there and tore the house down, as they should have, as they knew they could. And I just love this match. I finally got back. Greg gave me massive shit for not having watched it up until I think last year, because this was during the point where I wasn't watching wrestling on the regular because of my terrible grades. So having watched that within the last year, it is damn good. And you often wonder even now, with this match being what it was, and Kevin telling Vince McMahon, just match the money and I'll stay. I don't want to go to WCW. Just what could have been in '96. Granted, no NWO if that's the case, which sucks. But imagine what more of a run Diesel could have had, and then hell, if Shawn continues the path and he gets screwed out of the title the way he does by Sid, imagine the dude's attitudes getting hooked up together as heels again and Bitter Critter over the way Shawn was jobbed. Man, just good stuff there that could have been. Continuing on in 1996, toward the in the latter half of the year, a match that does get the praise it deserves. I dare say it should even get more, because it really showed that as much of a pretty boy as Shawn was, as much of a white meat babyface as he was trying not to be, despite the offices doing just that to him, he went into Philadelphia with Mick Foley and went, all right, you want to see hardcore? I'll show you hardcore. And these two guys, and Percy's elongated face for no particular reason in that shot, just had a unbelievable championship match where, when you think about the work rate of Shawn Michaels, especially at the time when Mick was in WCW. So if you think about the fact that Shawn's trying to regain his toughness, his Heartbreak Kid, his show-stopping main event guy status after being, baby-faced the hell out for most of that year. And you've got Mankind, who, other than the stuff with The Undertaker, really hadn't had a chance to shine with anybody else on the roster yet.
Mm-hmm.
They went into what could have been a potential powder keg in ECW's backyard with the ECW contingent at ringside for a good chunk of that show. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
And Foley having to go out there and turn the crowd against him by shitting on them because he knew they were going to chant for Cactus, because that was their boy. Great story, great match. Yeah, it was schmozzy at the end, but you have to. You can't have Foley lose cleanly yet, and you can't have Foley just dominate your champion when that's not your plan. So you end it schmozzy, but the stuff in between, chef's kiss for that. I honestly think that was Shawn's best match of his run after he won the title.
Interesting.
In '96.
An interesting take.
That was his best championship defense on either TV or pay-per-view that year.
I can agree to that. I would think that this was probably the first table spot he ever took.
Yeah, and when you figure that he took the spot and frickin' Foley went through it damn near head first because he's Mick and he's crazy and we love you for that, Mick. And I don't remember if Jose stayed out there or not with Shawn. He wasn't in their mat graphics. I don't remember. It's been a while since I watched it, but man, it just, all the elements are there. You got Undertaker in the casket afterwards. You got, Percy down there doing pallbearer things. Just great stuff all around. Number 4 is one of the, I said it was 2.5. This is one of the full ones. I believe it was on Mikey's list. No, I'm sorry. It was also on JJ's list. I take that back. The ladder match that doesn't get enough love. You're absolutely right, Jay. Does not get enough love, even though we all agree it did not need the World Championship in here. Have it be, shoot, as hard as Chris hit Rebecca, have it be for the piece of Rebecca's teeth that was up there. Put that in the briefcase.
Right.
Something. He smacked the shit out of her. SummerSlam.
And she took it like a champ.
Yes, she did. Nitro Girl this, Bischoff. Shit.
God bless Rebecca.
Having the chance to meet Shawn and, having Rebecca be kind of around for different events, she has, you can easily see why Shawn had no choice internally but to become a better person because of her, because she's just an absolute doll. I love her to pieces. But yeah, the ladder match at No Mercy, again, No Mercy kind of gets these matches you don't really expect to, get thrown at you on a pay-per-view. It's like, God, that's good stuff. So, and No Mercy, no exception. Now, granted, again, the whole thing with Punk and losing the title and that wasn't necessary, which I do still agree with to this day. But when you get something like this out of a controversial situation, all out, I'm okay with it. Is what it is, folks. It's a great contest between, again, two of the greatest to do it in our fandom, our time watching the business.
Yeah.
All right, number 3 kind of ties into your list, Jay, but only because you mentioned that the successor match made your list while the original made mine.
Okay.
I think Shawn's performance, as cool of a Easter egg as it was to have Shawn lose the fall in Edmonton to the sharpshooter with Benoit, was cool. Benoit winning, Triple H dropping the title, cleanly was great, but Shawn's MVP of this match. He bounced around that thing almost what she did with Hogan, although he actually meant to do it this time. He was actually being a legitimate, decent worker in this match. And he bled buckets. And my favorite spot of this match is Benoit having Hunter in the sharpshooter and Shawn super kicking going, nope, not yet, not today, just whap. And Benoit's head just snaps back, which looking back doesn't age well. But saying, but man, Shawn threw every bit of his 220 into that kick and just waylaid Benoit out of that sharpshooter and going, this ain't over yet. He's just a complete mess at this point. So I feel that as great as the moment was for Benoit at the end, even though we don't talk about it anymore, as great as it was for Hunter to definitively put somebody over by tapping out in the middle of the ring at Madison Square Garden, I still say Shawn's MVP of this match.
Anything he kicks, he destroys.
Yes, I understood that reference. Very good. Number 2, I was also on your list, Jay. And as I mentioned, a muckerfather of a graphic to find, so I just went and made my damn own graphic. I wasn't messing around with that freaking Hollywood marquee bullshit, so I didn't. This right here is the reason I regret not going to WrestleMania that year in person. It's the only reason. Honest to God. Yeah, Money in the Bank was good. Yes, Eddie and Ray was an amazing match. But not seeing this match live, still eats on my shit to this day.
It's fair.
I'm
so blessed that I was able to be there for that.
Yeah. You guys were there, and Team No DQ was there, and I wasn't. So.
I was sad that he had to tap out, the ankle lock. I wanted to see my boy win that night, but it just didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards. But also, we had more of an adrenaline rush when Taker fought Orton. That was the biggest adrenaline rush I ever had because of the story back home with that. But,
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm sure everybody at home is wondering, what could be number 1?
I have a couple of guesses.
Okay.
But I want to see what it is.
Okay.
And then if it's not what I'm thinking, I'll say what I have to say.
Well, again,
my question is, has it been referenced during this entire show?
Referenced? Yes, but not on a list.
Ooh. Then what could it be?
It's one of those, you guys both, were part of my number 2. JJ had it on his list. I was in the crowd from my number 1.
Oh, no.
And again, subjective, as Dad's always is, but as much as that was the moment for Flair, again, Flair says it himself to this day that Shawn carried him to the greatest retirement of all time. And those 5 words that just wreck everybody's shit to this day.
Yeah.
Every time we watch it, every time we reference it, I'm tearing up now thinking about it with a tear in my eye.
I'm sorry. I love you.
Oh, God almighty. It's and Flair undersells himself far too much in this. He really does. He was just as big a part of it as Shawn was. Both of these guys, Flair had, for me, other than the 1992 Royal Rumble, he had the greatest match of his WWE portion of his career. He went out exactly the way it needed to be. He had a wonderful match with the greatest performer of this generation. And again, still a little bit upset that it's not going to be the last one after all. Of course I am. Because my dad and I were there for this, and it's special, right? But for me, that's Shawn's greatest match because of how much it meant, still means for the most part, to history.
Yeah, I figured it was going to come down to 2 for you. That was one of them. The other was WrestleMania against John.
Right.
Or the Raw rematch, either one.
Right. Honorable mentions, by the way.
Knowing your affinity for the man we cannot see.
Yes, definitely.
I figured it was going to come down to one of those.
Yeah. Yep.
And what better way to wrap up the lists than to talk about the career-ending match? And here we are going into this weekend, and what hopefully will actually this time be his final match.
Yeah. And again, we're going to get...
complete with Jeff's memories from Mania.
Yeah.
Flair going in the Hall of Fame the night before, and then that match.
Yeah.
It's, again, 5:05 Eastern, 2:05 Pacific.
I'm going to need Jay to have a freaking case of Kleenex just right there by me because it's going to be a mess. Without a doubt. Without question.
100%. That's going to be an interesting one. Anyway, I've been looking at your advertisement for that, thinking, it should be 135, just to keep playing on the whole 5 kick.
Right. Well,
but it's one of those things. It's like, how much do we want to ride this dead horse?
Yeah, dead horse. Ha ha ha! Good plug. Good transition. Fuck it, we'll do it now. Why not? Okay. Woo! There you go. Okay. Yeah. Again, we talked about it on the break, but like I said, the shows this week I'm looking forward to the most. I mean, granted, we got great stuff coming up next week with Ask the Dads and the Eagles show and the SummerSlam title matches. But like this week is one of, it's probably the most star-studded pair of lists we've done in a minute.
Yeah, between this one, the Shawn Michaels list,
yep,
and the Horseman list.
Yep.
Just going to be nuts. But before we get to that, if you didn't check it out prior to this show going live, make sure you go back to the Casa D-18 Studios channel. Check out my review of Fantasia 2000, the last week of movies from inside of the Disney vault. It'll be a whole nother year until I get back to the Disney animated films.
Yes.
The final week of it. So we got Fantasia 2000 went live today. Tomorrow, of course, the flagship show here on the Jeff Meacham Network.
After this. But anyway, yeah. Talk wrestling, of course.
Oh.
Yes. Talk wrestling. Again, just I'm still kind of verklempt about the anniversary show because that was so much fun. So gonna get good shit. But yeah, then the day after that, you continue on in your final stretch of Disney.
Yes, the Tigger movie. Normal time, 3 Pacific, 6 Eastern.
Yes, sir.
After that will be the Greg Cherry Show.
As we do.
Yes. Thursday.
Yes. Again.
Following the No DQ review, which I haven't, as of this filming, I have not spoken to the boss man. But I'm hoping I can be on the review that day and just go straight from the review into the Horseman show.
Because you're glutton for punishment and want to tire yourself out before you go to the weekend. There you go,
You know what? I try to get onto the reviews prior to the pay-per-views that I'm going to do commentary for.
Of course.
Because I want to put over the goddamn content here on the Jeff Meacham Network.
Which is appreciated. Damn
so,
it.
Damn
it.
So, yeah. And then Friday, wrapping up my time inside the Disney Vault with an extremely goofy movie.
Yes, again at 3 o'clock.
Yes.
As you do. Then Saturday.
Yes. New release Saturday, The Gray Man, starring Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, directed by the Russo brothers.
That's a line right there in and of itself.
Right? That's why I picked it. It was like Gosling and Evans, directed by the guys that saved the Captain American franchise.
Right.
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Yep.
And
Crazy.
then SummerSlam.
Woo-hoo.
Pre-show beginning at 3:30 Pacific, 6:30 Eastern.
Yes.
Play-by-play beginning at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern.
Featuring
myself and Noah Foster doing the play-by-play and the color. James Hebert joining us for what will be his final WWE PLE.
Yes.
If you want to know more about that, then you can ask him about it during the chats. Immediately following SummerSlam, of course, open mic night.
And then
Sunday, another episode of The War Zone.
Yes, and of course, we talked about earlier. Woo! I do have one more plug in there for the two of you, anyway.
Okay.
Hey, there it is. August 9th, Tuesday, 7 p.m. Myself and Dory Lou get to come back into our establishment of Staff Boy Sports Bar with all the updated NFL news, all the stuff that's going on in baseball, all the stuff in wrestling, NHL coming up in October. We're gonna show off we're gonna do a lot of things. We're gonna have the football pick'em come back. Don't forget, Dory is the defending champion. So everyone in the pick'em contest, don't sleep on Dory Lou, because she will just take that notepad and say, your picks suck, my picks are better. Not much has been happening in the world of sports. We just got done with the All-Star break. Big whoop there.
Last week, yep, that's it. Yep.
Yeah, the big story in the home run derby was Albert Pujols, which was a surprise. Everyone thought he was done, and then he makes it all the way to the semifinals. Hey, there you go. But we will be back, and we can't wait. We only got about a week and a half to go, I believe.
And don't forget, Mikey, the Staff Boy Sports Bar will be live exclusively on Tuesdays on the Casa D-18 Studios with a replay on my network on Thursday. So let's JJ is going to be. I'll still be producing the show. I'll still be the man at the button, but JJ will be getting that Tuesday content on his channel coming up beginning August 9th, because, man, it's one of those, the Casa coming full circle, where Mikey's establishment returns home where it really belongs, on the Casa D-18 Studios. So it's going to be, and like you said, just over a week to go for that. So that'll be cool, because you're getting into NFL, camp starting, and it's going to be a great month before you get into kickoff.
I know we've worked hard this summer. We put in a lot of hours, and we're finally looking forward to taking a break on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we'll gladly come back in, give you 2 hours of our Tuesday to let you know what's going on in the world of sports and all that good news. Like I said, there hasn't been much news in the world of football lately, because everyone's been relaxing and keeping up with that baseball, and we're chomping at the bit for hockey. Also quickly in baseball, a lot of the Tennessee Volunteers got drafted to the MLB.
They did last week. Yeah. That was cool. That was cool.
I believe. Volunteers all went to the major leagues, so big props to them.
There you go. And now, the question in everybody's mind, since it is starting in 2023, give us a little preview, Mikey. Are you gonna cover the XFL?
I'm going to give the XFL a chance, folks. You're hearing it here first time. I'll give it a shot. We'll see where it goes. If it starts to get corny and boring, then I'll cut the cord on it like it's been happening the last 3 times.
Oh.
But, so here's my personal message to Dwayne. Make the XFL good so we can talk about it.
That's right. We can't make that be Bruno and not talk about it.
No, you can't talk about Bruno.
Although Renegade's rules you can. So there you go.
Rule number 4, we talk about Bruno.
Rule number 4.
Oh, yeah.
Again, everything's about 4s.
Synergy.
Thursday night, brother. There you go. Looking forward to it. JJ, it's Dads. Take us home, brother.
So we hope that you guys have enjoyed this presentation, the top 10 HBK matches for our special guest, the Stat Boy, the LB Kid, Mike Caldwell. For the West Coast Professor, Jeff Meacham. I am the Renegade JJ Williams. Thank you for watching us, and we will see you guys next time.